my name is Megan Mosier, and here's my assistive technology presentation. So I chose to do my presentation specifically on students with visual impairments. So I found a research article about students with visual impairments, access and participation in the science curriculum. So basically, this was a research study done by interviewing students with visual impairments and teachers of those students with visual impairments, just to kind of gauge where we're at in the practice of the application of some of these ideas. So a little bit of background is that IDA and IDIA require that students with disabilities have access to educational experiences in the least restrictive environment. And the No Child Left Behind Act also mandates that these students have access to general education taught by qualified instructors. In addition, the Next Generation Science standards advocate for excellence and equity for all students, including those with disabilities. So that's like the legislative background behind this. Despite this, students with visual impairments face additional challenges with inclusion in the science education classroom. So about 60,000 children in the U.S. ages 3 through 21 have a visual impairment. But general education, especially in science classes, rely heavily on highly visual content. So these students require accommodations, assistive technology, and services from a certified teacher to have the visually impaired. Still, many general educators feel ill-equipped and ill-prepared to help students with visual impairments, leaving these students' experiences subpar. So despite all of that legislative background saying how students all deserve the right to the best education, to the best ability of their teachers, this journal is kind of examining the practice of those laws. So this journal attempts to examine the pedagogical practices used to help these students and what accommodations and modifications are used for students with visual impairments in the U.S. Oh, there it goes. Okay, good. So the results of the study found that students with visual impairments are often unable to participate in scientific experiments and activities. Teachers often use simulations to instruct, but this study found that 30% of respondents felt that the simulations were rarely made accessible. Lab participation also had a disproportionately low rate of inclusion, especially in experiments including chemical reactions, pH, and microscopes. And this study also reported that science teachers felt less prepared to teach students with visual impairments and were not instructed on how to modify experiments and deal with safety concerns, because there are safety concerns of the certain safety procedures of different labs when dealing with students with visual impairments. Oh no, go back. Oh, just kidding, we're going forward. Okay, sorry, now we're on the right side. So here are some examples of the accessible equipment and materials that they found in this study. What they found was actually used in the U.S. One main thing was Braille. Another was large print measuring tools, like large print measuring tapes, talking scientific tools, including talking scales, talking balances, talking calculators, LabQuest, SciVoice Lab Solutions, which are both like online simulations, Azer's accessible periodic table, color identifiers, and modified lab equipment like beakers, graduated cylinders, etc. And accommodations, more from the teacher standpoint, of things they could do to help students with visual impairments, auditory instructions for laboratory procedures, extra time on assignments, and tactile images and verbal descriptions for images were common practices. So what this all means. So although there were many options like I just talked about for students with visual impairments, they're not always able to access higher level assistive technology like talking LabQuest and SciVoice Lab Solutions in real life. And there's a lack of training in the use of assistive technology for science educators. Less than 25% of master's degree programs in special education and 1/3 of undergraduate special education programs, like licensure programs, provide instruction in assistive technology. and over 75% of teachers interviewed said that none of their students with visual impairments took advanced science courses, which is a big deal because advanced science courses are what prepare students for college level work and employment. So if over 75% of teachers said that their students that were visually impaired never took advanced science courses, it just increases the learning gap between students with visual impairments and their peers. So in summary, students with visual impairments face greater challenges in full classroom inclusion and access to their needed materials. Teachers are less equipped to meet their needs and as a result take advanced courses at a lower rate than their peers. So on to the assistive technology portion, where I'm going to talk about the evolution of Braille in science education. So a little bit of background on Braille is the Braille system is a tactile system for the blind and visually impaired. It's a system of raised dot codes created by French educator Louis Braille in 1824. Louis Braille was blinded in a childhood accident at age 3 where he accidentally took an awl to the eye in a workshop, where it left him blind in both eyes from an infection. His parents insisted on the importance of a good education, so he went to a school where he was introduced to a 12-dot cryptography system used by soldiers during nighttime operations. He poked holes in paper, creating his own 6-dot system of reading and writing over the next few years, and now his system is used worldwide and has been adapted in new ways. So a little bit about Braille in modern life. The Braille system is still an essential path to literacy for the blind and visually impaired. Braille is not a language, rather an alternative way to read language like English. The American Foundation for the Blind says that literacy is essential for full participation in society and is therefore an irreplaceable method. However, adaptations are constantly being made to incorporate Braille with technology, with tools like Braille computers and keyboards, which you can see here. The application of Braille to science education. One way teachers can use assistive technology to adapt science education to those with visual impairments is by using Braille. So for example, equipment labeled with Braille allows for more independence in lab experiments and allows all students to participate in this important hands-on learning experience. Some examples of Braille labeled equipment are graduated cylinders with Braille and Braille rulers. Braille periodic tables also offer accommodations. So these are just different ways, like you can see here, to adapt science equipment to students with visual impairments and allow for participation in the lab. Some challenges. Some people think that since science is such a visual subject with graphs and symbols, it can be difficult to adapt through Braille. The reality is that UEB, the Unified English Braille, has all necessary science and mathematical symbols. Tools like Lego Braille bricks and other resources from places like the CNIIB and American Printing House for the Blind offer resources in Braille for students. So how does Braille and other assistive technology help in the classroom? So to conclude, Braille and other assistive technology in the science classroom allows all students to be involved in valuable learning experiences. Students with visual impairments can use Braille-labeled equipment and other 3D models to learn what their peers are also learning. These examples of assistive technology increase freedom and inclusion in the classroom and as a result boost the confidence of visually impaired students. Hopefully through the use of these materials we can bridge the access and learning gaps of students with disabilities and their peers. And here are my references for all the information we had. And thank you for listening. I hope that was informational.